Hello and welcome to the Guardians for New Future podcast. I'm Christy Conway, the Prevention and Outreach Coordinator. One thing I want to mention right off in the beginning is a lot of people ask me how they can help or how they can get involved. And the easiest thing to do is to join our Circle of Care. It's $12 monthly that can be debited. And that really goes a long way toward helping the children in our community get the care they need and receive here. On today's episode, we are honoring a special guest that we have from Inner Truth Project. Omar is here to help us talk about the men's initiative that's working. I'm learning as well as you are. I don't know a lot about this program, and I think it's super interesting. And we're going to dig in and see exactly what this looks like and how it's going to help us in the prevention world. So thank you for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
It's all my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. So Omar, how long have you worked with this project, and can you tell us some background on it, what it is to start with?
Sure, absolutely. I started working with the Inner Truth Project in October of last year. I've known Mindy for a while. When I was working at the Boys and Girls Club, she used to come in and she was working with Kids at Hope at that time. Mm-hmm. And we did a lot of collaborations together. And so serendipitous, which is kind of like how the universe works sometimes. 15 years later, our paths came across through my wife. And we met, and she told me what she was doing. I've known what she's done for all this year. I've always been a follower. And it sort of happened that at that time, things were shifting in my life, and it was a perfect time for me to be a part of the Inner Truth Project. So when she mentioned what I was doing, it's the men advocate. So I work primarily with male survivors of sexual abuse. But there was also another part. And the other part was really focusing on educating and guiding men to be allies. You know, one of the interesting things about our culture in terms of how we treat men is that we have made men one-dimensional. You know, Tony Porter, who's a Call to Men, a couple of years ago, they had him in one of our men's breakfasts, and he calls it the men box. You know, a man is supposed to be a leader. A man is supposed to be the breadwinner. A man is supposed to be strong. You don't show emotion. You suck it up, buttercup. All these things that society has made men be. But a man is much more than that. Right?
Yes.
There's so many dimensions to what it is to be a man, in terms of creativity, in terms of expressing ourselves in a way that is conducive and proper. And those are the things that I see in our program, in our men's initiative, that in order to really minimize and prevent sexual abuse from happening and prevent any type of harm that comes to another human being perpetrated by men, we need to make sure that men also are known that they know that there's more to them than what society has dictated up to this point. So that's part of my role.
That's exciting.
To be able to see that.
That's exciting because there really hasn't been a component for men. It's a left out piece. And I know federally and on state level, some funding came out a couple years ago for a lot of men's initiative, but it did not involve the sexual trauma portion of it. So I was happy to see that you took this movement and turned it into something under that angle, because a lot of it was to support men, single dads.
Correct.
So everything that's existing with this fatherhood initiative that came down still encompasses what you do, but you've added that partnering layer of supporting them through trauma that they've done, and I don't think that existed.
No, because it is taboo, right? If I give you its statistics, right, numbers, 1 out of 4 females experiences a negative sexual interaction before the age of 18, right? 1 out of 4 women live with this reality in our culture. I mean, we've seen it in the Me Too movement, all the changes that are happening when it comes to that aspect. But if I was to tell you that 1 out of 6 boys between the ages of from birth to 18 experience the same thing, that are reported. Right? Because we talk about the things that are reported, obviously, like the Boy Scouts of America, the the Catholic Church. And those are things that have made a lot of weight, but there's so much shame and the negative stigma that a man has to deal with in society for something that is not their fault. So what happens is, to a lot of the men that I work with, things don't really come to head much rather further down the line because society tells them to suppress this.
Right.
So you start a family, right, with this anger and this fear inside of you. So guess what happens? They take it out on somebody else, right? On their children, on their spouses, right? Hurt people.
Yes.
Right?
I quote that a lot.
Right? And if you look at the epidemic of what is affecting men as a whole, the mental health issues that really are, they don't deal with them.
Right.
We are not meant to deal with them. I'm a different type of being because I'm very attuned with both aspects of my personality, so I feel a lot. I'm being accused of being very sensitive, and that's okay. You know, and I've come to accept that, but for a long time it was so challenging for a man to be sensitive.
And it's not a negative. It's not a negative. And what I like about your approach and who you are to bring that to men is to model it. Because we can talk about what we read in books and you should be sensitive. You should be able to cry. That doesn't mean anything unless somebody else is doing it.
Precisely. And again, this whole concept of weakness because you're expressing something that is being suppressed inside of you, right? It's a fallacy. It's wrong. It's criminal.
Yeah.
Because there are so many great men out there in our society that are doing the work internally to feel better. But there are so many others that don't have that support system. Hence the high rate of suicide.
Sure.
Right? The high rate of crime between men to men. Because we don't know how to place these things because nobody has told us to do that. And nobody has told us that it is okay to understand that if you're angry, right, the anger is just a manifestation of not being able to deal with what's underneath. You know, so I work with some survivors and some young men, and I tell them all the time, I'm not afraid of you being angry. They're like, what? It's like, because you have to let it out.
Yes.
And you have to let it out productively.
Appropriately, yes.
Yeah, you have to let it out appropriately, you know. And that's a lot of the work that we do at the Inner Truth Project in terms of educating, but also in terms of facilitating that self-discovery.
Yeah.
You know, it's you know, I had a meeting this morning. We were talking about outcomes and processes, right? And I'm like, well, it's an internal journey,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That a person has to go through, or that a man has to go through to come into this realizations that they're more than what they've been told that they are. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And to be allowed to process it, talk about it. And I think I'm just envisioning this as just hearing this exists is huge. Whether they ever partner or even show up, it's given them permission for themselves to do it. One thing that Mindy says is, and it's the most powerful thing, if you've never told a story to her or talked to her, she says, I see you. Mm-hmm. And she does. She'll find you in a room, give that nod. Just that. Yep. Just the fact that you're here doing it gives permission for it to be done in your own way. And basically, there's some support if I can't figure it out. I hope I don't have to go see Omar. I hope I don't have to go in that room, but I can if I need to because they're doing it.
They are.
Yeah.
And you know, the interesting thing is that we hold a men's breakfast every Tuesday, the last Tuesday of every month, with community members, male community members, males and only males.
Yeah.
You know, so we have individuals. I'm going to put some names out like Sean Boyle, Sean Keel from Project Live, Sean Boyle from Children's Services Council, John Caesar, Mr. Singletary, Sandy Mack, Daniel Pimpo, who is a businessman in the community, mm-hmm. Paul Bobo, who's another businessman in the community. So we bring all these men together from all these different organizations and businesses. And we're beginning to strategize as to how, as a collective group of men, we begin to shift this idea and become more positive men. And not just the kids that are struggling and the kids that, and the work that we do with those kids, because we work with those kids, right? But also to expand this message to our community and really transform society. I mean, it's a big task, right? Because as men, right, we're achievers, and we want to But also there's that other aspect of our soul, our other aspects of who we are that also needs to be nourished. So this collective group of men, we've gone into our third meeting, and now we're getting into the planning stages and the really thinking part as to how are we going to conduct this work that we're all undertaking, right? And it's a beautiful thing to see.
It really is, because these people in the community you're talking about, and I do think, as I've worked in other areas outside of here, this is a model. St. Lucie County, when we talk about the round table, we talk about this advocacy center here. Anything and everything that can be done for the people of this community is in the works.
Yeah.
And with the established people that you have to model it forward, because like I said, if you talk about it but nobody's doing it, that's a big disconnect. So these men are showing up.
Correct.
And being present and moving forward with this. And that, I think, is the all-powerful. You don't feel intimidated. You don't feel alone when you see these powerful leaders in the room who are just there to have breakfast with you. Is it something that you're finding you're taking the stigma away from the sexual assault part, and it's more like a collaborative among men to heal and to grow spiritually, emotionally?
There's personally speaking, right? There's a big yearning for change, right? And I mean, you see it in our society, right? Like, which direction are we heading? We know that a lot of the forms in the past are no longer useful, right? And I think men are beginning to realize that a lot of the expectations are no longer useful for them as a human being, right? The pressure of having to be perfect all the time, the pressure of not having, if you fail, if something doesn't work out for you, you're a failure. That's a big thing to put into, number one, a human being. Think about doing that to a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old who is just beginning to transform and develop who they are. So I do see a big shift. And I think I've been privileged to work in all the three counties. And I will tell you this about St. Lucie County. It's one of the most welcoming places that you can work at.
Great.
You know, and I think that there's a willingness, right?
Absolutely.
There's a big difference between willingness and ability, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of other places that have the ability, they have the funding, they have a lot of the money. But there's something about St. Lucie County and the willingness to actually do the work.
That's right.
And doing it from the heart.
Yes.
That is the beauty of it all that I see here.
Do you find that in St. Lucie County and the work you're doing that men are able to participate because of the standing members who are supporting this? And there are people here who've been long-term residents, long-term caregivers to the community. And we all know when they step in that it's that important. And I think having the people that you're having come to the table is establishing that. And it's not secretive. And I think that's powerful as well. We're men. We want to change the current. We want to be active. We want to participate in society. And we want to be accepted to do that. And here's some other men who want to grow with us and help mentor us as well. And how do you think that's going to impact like the next generation when these men have kids? What's this going to look like as far as preventing the pain and sorrow and the abuse that may stem from being a victim themselves?
Correct. I mean, you see that, and the way that it's portrayed, most of the damage is caused by men, right? And I think that now men are beginning to recognize the power that they have, and that it could be used for good.
Yes.
Right? And that it could be used for prevention, and that it could be used to actually foster a better future for their kids or for society. Because if you ask any man, right, it's like, what's important to you? That my kids are okay.
Right.
That they are much better off than I was.
Yes.
And when you see leaders like Sean Boyle leading by example.
Yes.
Right, leading by example and letting know Paul Bobo, Dan Pimple, these are businessmen whose goal is to make money. Right?
Yes.
But they're realizing that in order for them to be successful, the society also needs to thrive and needs to heal.
Yes.
Right? And they're taking their time, their efforts, their money.
Yeah.
Right? And putting it into transforming the sources and the root causes of the pain that goes into sexual trauma,
Yes.
children abuse, and abandonment.
Yes.
To be able to deal with the root causes of it.
That's it.
You know, that is the beauty of this men's initiative. And again, I can't continue to go on without thanking Mindy Fetterman for this.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I always talk about the root and the branches, right? And she is the root of a lot of the changes that are happening. You know, I'm thankful and blessed that I'm here facilitating and being a part of it. But it goes to show you the power of an individual when they set their mind into something, right?
Yes.
And how we as individuals have that responsibility too, to take an action.
Yes.
Right? To take an action and do it for the better of our society. Our community is growing.
The greater good.
The greater good. Our community is growing. It's going to thrive. And when we're minimizing abuse of any form, right? And when we are being examples of love and caring, particularly coming from men, there's going to be a huge consciousness shift that's going to happen in our community and throughout the world.
It's happening quickly because more and more people are being aware of that. And what I love about it is the stigma is, I think in other areas where they weren't as warm or as aware of the suffering of families and children, other areas that don't have the partnerships and the long-standing relationships we have here, that and maybe I'm speaking from my own stigmas, that they wouldn't want to be a part. I don't want people to think I've been victimized. I don't want to talk about sexual trauma. I'll do a nice donation, but they're putting their faces on this to help move it forward and to eliminate that stigma. If the community leaders that are men are coming to this, you certainly can too, sir, yourself. Let me ask you something more. Is it just males that have been victimized could come to these things? Is that who you're looking for? Just men in general to learn how to grow and be, see things differently? That's
a very good question. So there's our approach is a two-pronged approach, right? We deal at the center, in the Truth Project, we deal with male survivors of sexual abuse. And that's a hard demographic because like you mentioned, there's shame involved with that. There's the fear, I'm going to be less than. But I will tell you this, the men that I work with, they're not less than.
No.
These are very strong professionals. They are workaholics. I will tell you that this is one of the ways in which they deal with the situation. They're very successful in their community. They're very successful in their families, and they just got that willingness to want to be better.
Yes.
And put all this stuff down. But we do provide services to males, and I work one-on-one with a lot of them. I work in group settings with a lot of them. We do have counselors that work with them, and that service is always there for individuals that really want to tackle and deal with that aspects of their lives. The other aspect is with the Men's Breakfast and the Men's Initiative, it's twofold. It's to bring awareness about what it means to be a positive male role model, and to also be allies to survivors.
Nice.
So, again, if you look at, you primarily work with children in abusive situations, right? If you look at that component, if we have male individuals that are no longer causing that pain, because they're being healed, and we're able to be allies to help them, those situations will minimize.
Yes.
I just recently became a grandfather, right? And I see this.
Congratulations! I know what that means. I have.
It is right. How many do you have?
4. 4. Yeah, the oldest one's 15. The youngest one's 5.
Oh wow!
It's a great time in your life.
It is. I mean, it's an amazing thing to see.
Sure, it is.
Like this miracle of. One thing that wasn't there.
That's your child created this.
Right. And it's so beautiful how life could be, right?
Yes.
And then you ask yourself, how could somebody hurt something so beautiful and so precious, right? But I always go back, well, what's going on with that person's life?
Yes.
So the Men Initiative is really, at the end of it, looks at how do we heal men?
Yes.
How do we make them and help them know that there is a positive way to be a man that doesn't have to hurt,
Yes.
And he doesn't have to hurt others.
Right. Retaliate with that grief and pain.
Retaliate with their grief and their pain.
Yes.
So how do we do that? So the man initiative focuses on that. Because once we focus on the man and the individual, then we can start really being allies.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you can't heal yourself. If you're not healed, how can you be an ally to somebody? So it's taking that approach, working together so we could educate the young people that a lot of these organizations work with, and the business people that a lot of these people work with, and so forth and so on. Because it's not just for the survivors, but it's for those allies that we need.
Yes.
For the transformational approach to being a man in a positive sense.
And what it looks like for today.
It looks like in today's world.
I'm glad you explained that twofold, because working in another role that I had, people, if I would see them in the public, I didn't acknowledge them because of their confidentiality. So men would not have to have a confidentiality fear of approaching you in public, going to these breakfasts. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a survivor, although there's no shame in that whatsoever. People come to Mindy's programs whether they're a survivor or not, and there's no distinction. It doesn't matter. So men in the community can come work with you. It does not identify them as a survivor. It may identify them as an ally toward men in general, not so much a sexual abuse situation that can be dealt with confidentiality behind the scenes.
Precisely, and that's it. That's the beauty about what we do, right? Come to these events, be a part of what you see in the community, because regardless whether you are a survivor or not, we all have something at stake.
Yes.
Right? Our community, every single one of us is part of the community, right?
Yes.
So we all have something at stake to actually make it better. You may see my action of being kind, and just being there for someone, even though if I don't understand what he means, but just being there for someone, that has an exponential effect.
It does.
Right? On our society. If you are a survivor, think about the years in which you held on to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And how if you were to deal with it, if you actually confronted it and had people there for you, how would your life have changed?
Yes.
What would it look like if you're actually able to put this down?
To heal. And that's one thing we talk about here at the Advocacy Center is research shows that if trauma is addressed early, that it really reduces lifelong consequences. We talked about that because some people tend to, whether they're aware of it or not, self-medicate with drugs and alcohol.
Yes.
So what I talk about with prevention is it's not an easy number. It's going to take a long time to see that build. We can't say like 10 people went in and only 8 return. People want to see that. But over time, I think we're going to see a huge shift. But it is going to take that time for men to work through it, produce it into society. Their children will now have a different sense of fatherhood because of the way they approach it.
Exactly.
And they might not have without the skills that they're gaining from mentors and other men to be a different and express different sides of them while healing other sides of them and just being that holistic male in society.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because this is one of the things that when you work as a group, right, you begin to see this, right? Because when you live in isolation, right, let's say I'm just going to concentrate on myself. All you see in your environment is you.
Yes.
Right? And what you see, what you perceive. When you come across, get together with different types of men.
Yes.
Or different groups, whatever group it is, right? You start picking up things that are like, oh, well, that's cool.
Yes.
Wow, I never thought about it like that.
Yes.
Oh, well, I could do this. So you have this communal growth because people are sharing their emotions. People are sharing, a vulnerability.
Yes.
Which is one of those things about men that is so hard to be vulnerable towards one another.
Sure.
Right? And what I've seen in our breakfast is that we see the vulnerability open up.
Yeah.
And we see them expressing, I wish when I was younger I would have done this differently.
Yeah.
Right? I wish, and there's a growth and an acceptance.
Allowing it. Like this tough guy, Omar, he's a tough guy. He's a man's man. But he just said that he felt bad about this. Well, I felt bad about that too. And he said it out loud and everybody just moved on with the conversation. Something as simple as that, that modeling it and not just reading about it in a book, but to see it live and walk away with that. Exactly. And then they try it out themselves and the earth didn't fall apart and they're like, okay, maybe I can talk about something else. So just that.
And the beauty of creating a safe environment
Yes.
for this to happen. That is the beauty of the men that I've seen. Our allies, and I call them the allies. So the men's breakfast are really allies. The willingness to be open, the willingness to grow,
Yes.
the willingness to make an impact.
To just be present, to show up there, who they are. And it's not a secretive meeting behind the scenes. We're here to support guys and see what they need. And it's just out in the open like that. And that is powerful in itself.
Exactly.
Just that it exists.
Yeah. And then to the male survivors, that's one aspect, because it is challenging. You know,
Sure.
I would love to tell you that my day is filled with helping with these amazing individuals, right?
Yeah.
But I understand their fear,
Yes.
their trepidation,
Sure.
the stigma, the not being believed.
Yes.
The one thing of being looked as less than a man.
Yes.
Because something like this happened
Yes.
to me. You know, like these things are burdens that we don't need. They don't need to carry. There's strength in that. You know, like you said, Mindy, it's like the journey from victim to survivor.
Yes.
You know, there is a journey, and it's a journey of self-discovery.
Yes.
Of not being just one-dimensional, but seeing all the facets of who we are. And that is the beauty of the survivors. I always say that survivors are some of the strongest people that you will ever meet.
Absolutely.
There are, and they are some of the strongest people that could, again, living with this, overcoming it, and then still to be able to function.
And one thing you mentioned, they don't reoffend. They don't take that hurt out on other people. So they've absorbed that. They've absorbed their own pain, traveled from victimization to survivor on their own.
Yes.
And just whatever support they could muster, or if it's just innately among themselves to do it, they did it. But you don't know that happens until you see it, in that context. And to see people who are still feeling victimized, but then to see somebody like Mindy who's a survivor, it's like, I want to be over there. But I'm still here. So it's a distinct change. And if you don't see that, you don't even know it exists.
Exactly.
You don't even know that there's a better place to be with your pain. And I see people doing it. And that gives me the incentive to want to be that as well.
Yeah.
So it's that push to get to that point of survivorhood to where you can be an ally now. Because when you're still in the victimization mode, you still need care yourself. So you may not be in the right space to give it to someone else or to show them where you are in your journey. It's important. And your being present is important. But to see somebody who's gone all the way through the process and come back in. And what I say about people like that is, how dare you not? How dare you go through this and carry that and not bring somebody out with you? So that's important.
And this is one of the things that that I would like to see as I progress with this initiative is models. Right?
Yes.
Because our world needs better models.
We need to see it, because you can talk about it all day long.
But we need to see better models. You know?
Yes.
And consequently, I mean, if you take these premises of both aspects, the sexual survivors and the allies, and the idea of modeling caring for your fellow person.
Yes.
Right? And think about the exponential effect that you'll have that on your work environment,
Sure.
on your home, on your community, and the world at large. So, and that's just my out there way of thinking about things. But it really starts like that.
It very much
It
does.
really starts with you trying, your personal journey, and then modeling the right thing.
What it looks like. And I can see men that have this kind of support being nurturing fathers.
Correct.
Being those ones that are up at night with the babies and making those bonding experiences, because they're now allowed to feel.
Yes.
They're allowed to feel their own pain, treat it, and get over it, and then see the pain in other, bring that empathy, that compassion aspect to them, which is missing because you don't have space for it when you're hurting so bad. But when that, you got to fill that with something else, and often it's giving it to somebody else. So I think within a generation, it may be impactful. And at least we won't know what couldn't have happened. We see what didn't happen with these families.
Yes.
Yeah. and have that powerful stance of men being supported, being supportive of each other, allowing them to be human beings with emotion, just that. Are you dealing with the young youth, youth of a certain age, or is it just men at this breakfast, or how's it going to reach out to the young men?
Generation, absolutely. So one of the things that I also do is that I just started a few classes, one with the Lindsay School of the Arts, I mean with a group of young men between the ages of 13 to 17, high school age. So I meet with them once a week, and we talk about all these different things. You know, we talk about understanding their personal values, understanding who they are, visualizing their future, and then also being allies to girls, to other men, to the community.
To model that among their peer groups. Yeah,
Precisely.
because it has to be allowed. Somebody has to give permission, and then the permission has to be modeled.
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to be a nicer guy. Okay, great.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Yes.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I always emphasize. What does it look like? You know, what does your future self look like? What does you being a person of integrity? What does that look like? Right.
Yeah.
So we work on that, and we've been doing it for about a month and a half now. And then also last week I started the same class with Project Lift.
Oh, wonderful.
So Vic, Shaquille, PJ, who is one of the program managers there. So we started that class, and then we'll also be doing the same thing with their morning group, which is a little older, which are the 18 to 25-year-olds who are, you know, didn't make the best choices, but you know, they're still in that age in which it's important to reach them and help them out. So those are some of the outreach things that I started to do, and that will continue to grow when it comes to that, to reach that group and to reach younger groups. You know, my background is for 17 years. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club, so I was a Boys and Girls Youth Development professional in the 3 counties. And so I always have that affinity of working with young people, because I think it's important to start modeling the ideals with those young people, allowing them to take a chance. If they fail, it's not a failure. It's what do you learn from this? Yeah. You know, what can you have done differently? Yeah. You know, and then be able to grow them from there. So there's quite a few things in this initiative.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, but it is engaging, it is fun. And the great thing is that I'm not doing it by myself. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of, from the men breakfast to our survivors, to Mindy, Jessica, and our staff. Yes. There's a lot of support that goes around to actually begin to just chip away at the old ways of doing things. Yes, opening up the new aspects of what's available gently. And it's not a big, huge windfall. It's like, you know, by the way, if this has happened, come see us. And that's a better way of bringing people in than making a big issue out of it, because they don't want that kind of attention. I don't think they're just like, I'll call, but don't say anything kind of thing, just to get the basic information on what this is, what this looks like, and to get ahead of it with the young people, because one of my goals is I don't want another child to go in that exam room here. I don't want that to happen. So if they understand early what this looks like, and they can grow up and be, it's like a community leader school for the young people. This is what you can come up and do. You can come work with us with these initiatives. You can come to the breakfast, you know, and talk about how that's helped you get along with your peers. And I think it's important for young boys and young men in schools to have a different way of carrying themselves with those skills, and with grown adult males to talk to about it, and they can bring a leadership skill to other and model that at that level we talked about. You know, I talked to this guy and he said we should just be nice. That's different than I'm gonna do this and this and show that it's actually hands-on. I'm gonna actually follow through with it. And the next guy might be more apt to say, you know, well, nobody made fun of him, I can maybe do this too, because that's a big fear. So to just gently do the work with the guidance and acceptance of older men who are mentoring them, it's huge. It is. There's one thing that you mentioned that when you were talking, it came into my mind because it's something that happened before. I used to do a lot of SEL training, social and emotional training for younger kids and some adults as well, right? And I remember the first time this concept came about, self-awareness and all that stuff. It's like, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit around the table and sing Kumbaya? Right. You know, right? That's like and I caution men not to think like this.
Right.
Because it's not about being a positive male doesn't mean that those aspects of being protective, those aspects of being a leader, those aspects of being a provider, that those things go away. That's not what it means.
I like that you're integrating. You don't have to change who you are as a man. We're adding to a component that's going to give you some empathy and to see things that other people that you can help them with now that you've grown.
Yes, and it's the same thing. Competition. These are aspects that are not negative in and of themselves, right? But it's not the totality of what it means to be men. And that's the other parts that we have to explore. That aspect of empathy.
Yes.
That aspect of sympathy.
Yes.
Right? The compassion aspect.
Yes.
The idea that you could compete with someone, but you don't have to destroy them.
Right.
Right? It's like, this is the part that we have to be able to look at ourselves, right? And not in the cynical way of, let's just sing kumbaya, because that's what a lot of, traditionally, this is what we think.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about growing and evolving into a more total person.
Yes.
Right? Into knowing that it's like, oh my God, I don't feel like breathing. I'm stressed out because I don't know what I'm going to do. My kid has this bill. I got to pay for this. I got to pay for that. I'm not getting enough hours. That right there, you suppress that or you hold that in. Right? It becomes anger.
Yeah.
And then what do you do? You abruptly take it out of the people that are closest to you.
Yes.
Right? But he's been able to have that self-compassion to be able to say, I need to put this somewhere.
Yes.
And I know there's a group of men out there that could listen to me and say, it's going to be all right, buddy.
Yes.
Right?
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you don't have to go into the bottle.
Yes.
You don't have to go into like hitting your wife or abusing somebody.
Yeah. Or
to exert your power in that way because you want to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
It's looking at those aspects, right? But our society has done a really crappy job at allowing men to be able to see that compassion side.
Right.
To be able to see the sympathetic side because it's there.
Yes.
Like it's there.
It's just not allowed.
And
now with the mental health crisis, with the addiction crisis, women are falling under. So the men need to step up and take care of these kids. They need to be the father because mom's not available anymore. Mom is struggling. Mom may have been victimized. Mom may be hospitalized, dealing with active addictions. And in the world we live here, that's every day. So who's there for these kids when there's a good, healthy dad who's got issues, isn't allowed to be a nurturer,
correct,
but it's his child. So I can imagine the feeling of being stuck unless you were given permission. Hey, you know what? It's all right to cry over this. It's very sad, and I would too. And they're like, oh, it's okay to talk to your child and tell them it's going to be okay instead of being, go on with your day, I've got problems.
Exactly.
To change the narrative of what they're allowed to do and say, which is nothing but healing for everybody.
Exactly. And these are the little nuances, right, that we have to be cognizant of looking into this. And again, I've been criticized in the past for being too sensitive. Oh, you're too nice to kids. Oh, this and that and the other. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. Right? If you think I'm less of a man because of that, and that is not on me.
Right.
It's completely on
your
you.
perception. Because a female would never be talked to like
not
that.
At all. Not
they
at
would
all.
not say, oh, Christy, you're way too nice to those 3-year-olds.
Yes.
You see the dynamic there?
Exactly.
And what if I wasn't? What if I approached it like the typical vision of what they think men are?
Yeah.
I would be criticized for being too harsh. You just can't win with people's perception. So all you can do is do the good. And what I found when you model that, they may come at you then, but later they'll be like, well, I did see this guy really approach children in a gentle way and they reacted to him. So they'll grow whether you know it in the moment or not. They'll learn from that modeling, that behavior.
And that's the beauty of being in that group.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And having those communities and having a community that this is permissible.
Yeah.
To be sensitive to kids.
Yeah.
Right? To go down to their level and look at them in their eyes. Like, literally go down and get on the knee and actually talk to a kid like that.
Yes.
Right? And so these are the nuances, right?
Yes.
The beautiful things about what it is to be a total human being.
Yes.
That idea of being there for someone without the stigma, right?
Yes.
Just, hey, I'm here for you.
That's it. More than just, like I said, just you existing, this organization existing. There's often what I hear is, I won't ever go. But if I did need to, I know it's there. And that that just excels their healing to the fact where I'm sure they're talking about everything I'm talking about with myself. And I didn't know people did that. I probably won't, but I know it's okay to now because all these people go. Just it existing is huge.
And just knowing, and again, it's the societal stigma around sexual abuse in particular, right? It's something that happens a lot.
Yes.
Right? And just being able to go to a place in which you could just, hey, this happened to me. Because sometimes Mindy tells me all the time, people come here just once, they just blah.
Yeah. Done.
Go.
Yeah.
And they're done. Right? Because they just wanted to just let it out.
A safe place to
a safe place, non-judging, that you could just let it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes perhaps that's all that it takes.
That might be it.
And if it takes more, then we're also
the follow-up's there.
The follow-up is there as well. You know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, to kind of like recap, there's just the two approach. The obviously I will love, and I love nothing more than see men heal, like the men that I work with right now, that I see them healing, I see them grow, I realize how self-aware they are.
Amazing,
right?
yeah.
It's an amazing thing to see, and they know how, when they're getting upset, when they're getting angry, anger is one of those main things. And they know, I'm getting upset, I need to walk away.
Recognizing
it.
Yes.
And they're learning from it, and now they're recognizing that they're seeing anger in other people, so they know to give them their space.
Yes.
It's an amazing growth that happens when you really begin to understand more aspects of yourself.
And people often aren't open to that, because I'm I can hear that I'm a 50-year-old man. I don't need anybody telling me how to be a man. Oh, we're not. We're just going to say there's other aspects that you're allowed to enjoy.
Yeah.
And whether you've been told that or not, it's true. So.
And here's something, right? There's a book out there. It's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, yes.
Right? So I'm going to tell you some of the things that happen, and this is, you could hear the story. It's almost like a reparative story when it comes to male sexual survivors. They never feel anything until they're in their late 40s, their 50s, and their 60s.
Because they've been hyper-focused on surviving, getting by, and now the kids are grown, and they don't, and sometimes I know that being busy is a trauma response. It keeps you from dealing with reality. When all of that reality's gone and you're stuck with yourself, then what? Yeah.
And it manifests physically. Panic attacks, right? Heart attacks sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
It manifests in your body, physical illnesses.
Sure.
Because you're not able to say, well, this happened to me, and realize the fact that it wasn't your fault.
Exactly. Just the blame. The prevention program we're doing now with kids, it stops with no blame, no shame. We're teaching kids at pre-K level that if an adult hurts you, it is not your fault. And that's powerful. The kids have little hand motions they do with it. And just walking away with that, I think they know early that it's an adult's responsibility to keep them safe. And if they don't, they need to tell a safe adult that that's happening. So that's you with these guys and the men and the young guys in our community that can have that there for them, whether they need it or not, or to come back in and help other men move forward and just be good community members, good stewards of our kids here, and have that opportunity. I don't think it exists anywhere else. So I know the community's grateful to have you on board. I know Mindy's grateful to have you on board, and your presence and your way of approaching it is what's going to make this work, because it's powerful.
And the beautiful thing is that it's and I appreciate that, and thank you, and I receive that, but it's really a communal event. It's really a community thing. It's I tell the guys all the time, I'm not your leader. I'm facilitating and putting these things together, but this is us, and it is us as men that are going to make this change.
And I think that's what makes it work, to your approach to that, because nobody wants to come in and say, oh, well, you do this, this, and this. You're with them, not over them.
Yes, yeah.
You're there together, not as a teacher or someone like that. So that's going to be so incredibly welcoming, just to have another guy that they can have a conversation with. It's not a class. It's not instruction, because who is anybody? You've not lived their experience. So you just sit there with them, with it.
Yeah, and then we work together. We're creating the action plans. I mean, it's really amazing how things are taking shape in just 3 meetings.
Yeah.
How things are taking shape, and it's really a reflection of the potential of our community.
It's so exciting.
That is the exciting part.
It really is. Omar, can you give us some information on how somebody could reach out to you if they needed some more information, if they wanted to maybe join the breakfast or
Sure.
to maybe get some care that they won't talk about out loud, but they could reach out to you directly to get some information?
Absolutely. I mean, the best way to find us is to go to our website, innertruthproject.org. Right, and reach us on social media. You're able to find me there, and you'll be able to connect. If you would like a tour of the location, yes, through the website, you could actually set that up with us.
Nice.
I will be able to take you. I mean, you've been there before you come for a tour yogas, right?
Yes.
And it's a beautiful, welcoming place, non-judgmental. This is a welcoming space. For people to be their authentic selves.
I can speak firsthand on that. You walk in and it's just comforting. It's not it's not anesthetic. It's not hospital-like. And that segues to us as well. We like people to come firsthand and see what we do here. We can talk about it all day long, but until you walk through and see what this really looks like for the children who've been in a situation where they need our help, whether it's a sexual or physical assault, you can see the care that happens here. You can see the work that happens here when you go into the exam rooms, when you go see the area where the children are supported by advocates. It has a powerful impact on what you think might happen here. So please reach out to us as well to come by. I'll walk you through, take a look, and you can see firsthand what work is doing here. With Omar's organization as well, we welcome the community in to see how you can help. A lot of people want to help but don't know how. A lot of people have misconceptions about what happens at these organizations, and we are an open book. Please come by and see us so that we can explain more and see how you may want to help us help the youth and the families here in our community.